Good morning, sir.
So, shall we start? Can I start?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll discuss about acute respiratory distress syndrome. We use abbreviation ARDS. Okay. So, what is this acute respiratory distress syndrome? It is acute hypoxemic respiratory failure caused by direct or indirect lung injury and with progressive respiratory symptoms and signs. Okay, I repeat, acute hypoxemic respiratory failure. So, you know that there are two types of respiratory failure, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is hypoxemic respiratory failure, type 2 is hypercapnic respiratory failure, right? So, this ARDS to present with it is predominantly presents as type 1 respiratory failure, that is hypoxemic respiratory failure. So it is acute, okay, acute hypoxemic respiratory failure caused by direct or indirect lung injury and with progressive respiratory symptoms and signs. So it is a final common pathway of various underlying condition. So it can be direct lung injury or it can be indirect lung injury. So ultimately this injury to lung, either direct or indirect, will lead to acute hypoxemic respiratory failure, which is known as acute respiratory distress syndrome. Diagnostic criteria, okay, when to suspect, appropriate clinical setting, that is likely underlying cause. There should be some underlying cause. The development of bilateral alveolar or interstitial infiltrates of acute onset, that is less than 72 hours, that is less than 3 days duration, on frontal chest radiographs. These are all the prerequisites in order to call the patient to be having, so to say that patient is having acute respiratory distress syndrome. Okay, appropriate clinical setting should be there. The development of bilateral alveolar or interstitial infiltrates of acute onset, that is less than 3 days duration, on frontal chest radiograph. PaO2 by FiO2 less than or equal to 300. What is it? PaO2 by FiO2. See, PaO2 is arterial oxygen pressure. Okay, partial pressure of oxygen in arterial blood. FiO2 is oxygen, partial pressure of oxygen in the inspired air. So this is usually more than 400. This PaO2 by FiO2 ratio is also known as P by F ratio. We call it as P by F ratio, more than 400. So whenever this P by F ratio is less than or equal to 300, that is the prerequisite. So these are all the prerequisite for diagnosis of acute respiratory distress syndrome. No clinical evidence that left ventricular failure or intravascular volume overload as the principal cause for the acute radiographic events. So you should rule out intravascular volume overload. There should not be intravascular overload because of some excessive fluid administration. Okay, if you are giving IV fluids, overload of IV fluids, the patient can develop similar picture. Then you don't call it as acute respiratory distress syndrome. And if patient is having left ventricular failure, if very patient is having left ventricular failure, in such a situation also you may get similar picture, but we don't call it as acute respiratory distress syndrome. So this is important. This is diagnostic criteria. There should not be any left ventricular failure, or it should not explain the picture totally. Okay, so and intravascular volume overload should not be there. Okay, so this is the diagnostic criteria. So there is a Berlin definition of ARDS. Timing within 1 week of clinical insult or new worsening respiratory symptoms. Okay, so it is acute onset, that is duration of symptomatology of less than 1 week duration. Okay, duration of symptoms. So what are the symptoms which is present? It is mainly shortness of breath. Okay, mainly shortness of breath. The presenting symptom of ARDS is mainly shortness of breath. It can also present with other symptoms like cough, fever, depending on the underlying etiology. Okay, so I told you in the beginning that ARDS is a final common pathway. So it can be because of direct injury. I will explain in the next slide. So timing is within 1 week of clinical insult or new worsening symptoms. So patient will be deteriorating clinically within 1 week of the first insult, right? Chest imaging, bilateral opacities. On chest X-ray, there will be bilateral opacities which are not fully explained by effusions, lobar lung collapse, or nodules. So you should rule out these things. Okay, is it effusion? Okay, is the chest X-ray finding is because of pleural effusion or lung collapse or lobar collapse or nodules? Those, okay, bilateral opacity is not fully explained by effusions, lobar or lung collapse or nodules. Origin of edema. There will be interstitial and alveolar edema, which is not fully explained by cardiac failure or fluid overload. Objective measure to rule out hydrostatic edema. Okay, so oxygenation, that is P by F ratio. This is measured by, oxygenation is measured by P by F ratio, partial pressure of oxygen in the arterial blood to the ratio of inspired oxygen partial pressure. So if it is between 200 to 300, then it is mild oxygenation. We also call it as mild ARDS. Okay, it can be, this ARDS can be further classified as mild, moderate, and severe ARDS. So earlier we used the term acute lung injury for this mild ARDS. Now the term acute lung injury is replaced by mild ARDS. So mild ARDS is with that chest imaging time symptomatology, okay, and in presence of P by F ratio between 200 to 300, okay, between 200 to 300, that is mild ARDS, which was earlier known as acute lung injury. Moderate ARDS is between P by F ratio between 100 to 200, and whenever it is less than or 100, less than or equal to 100, then it is severe ARDS. Okay, severe ARDS. Positive end expiratory pressure or continuous positive airway pressure of more than or equal to 5 centimeters of water should be there, or positive end expiratory more than 5 centimeters of water. So here we give the positive end expiratory pressure so that to, if there is a positive end expiratory pressure is less than 5, so there is chances of lung collapse, which can also show the similar picture on chest radiograph. So that is the reason why positive end expiratory pressure or continuous positive airway pressure in the airways should be more than or equal to 5 centimeters of water, right? Then, so here, okay, the presentation of ARDS is mainly with shortness of breath, which is acute onset, that is within, patient will be deteriorating, okay, progressively. There will be fast deterioration of the patient within 1 week, okay. So ARDS, once you suspect ARDS, chest X-ray will be showing this kind of picture, okay, bilateral diffuse opacity, interstitial and alveolar opacity. This is how it appears. So this is not specific for ARDS. It is one of the criteria in defining ARDS. Remember this. This kind of picture can be there in many other conditions. Okay, it can be simple pulmonary edema secondary to cardiac problem, cardiac failure. So it can be cardiogenic pulmonary edema also. Okay, so it can be hypersensitivity pneumonitis, or it can be anything else. Okay, there are so many differential diagnoses of chest X-ray with this picture, but one of the this chest radiograph imaging is one of the criteria in defining acute respiratory distress syndrome. Causes. What are the direct causes and indirect? I told you in the beginning that it is a final carbon pathway of various injuries, whether direct or indirect. So what are the direct causes? Pneumonia, gastric aspiration, blunt chest trauma, near drowning, toxic inhalation. These are all the direct causes. There is direct injury to the lungs. Okay. So indirect causes: sepsis. Sepsis, bacterial infection somewhere in the body, not lungs. Okay. Okay. Somewhere in the body, it can be urinary tract infection or it can be gastrointestinal infection, which will lead to sepsis, and that affects the lungs and part of diffuse multi-organ dysfunction syndrome. Okay, sepsis, large volume blood transfusions, typically of more than 15 units, massive tissue trauma in road traffic accident. If there is massive tissue trauma, lung transplantation, reperfusion after cardiopulmonary bypass, drug overdoses, and pancreatitis. Okay, so these are all the indirect causes. Okay, somewhere the inflammation here, what happens here is there will be inflammation. There will be inflammation in the lungs, which can be either direct because of direct injury or indirect involvement. So I have highlighted this pneumonia, gastric aspiration, and sepsis because 90% of the cases are because of pneumonia, gastric aspiration, and sepsis. So 90% of ARDS patients, there is underlying pneumonia or gastric aspiration or sepsis. So rest of the 10% because of the other causes. So this you must remember. Direct causes: pneumonia, gastric aspiration, blunt chest trauma, near drowning, toxic inhalation. Indirect causes: sepsis, large volume blood transfusion, massive tissue trauma, lung transplantation, reperfusion after cardiopulmonary bypass, drug overdoses, pancreatitis. Pathogenesis. This starts with a pulmonary or systemic insult that triggers an inflammatory response within the lungs. So it can be, I told you, inflammatory response can be because of the direct injury or indirect injury. This results in non-cardiogenic increased permeability form of pulmonary edema. I told you there are three mechanisms by which there will be extravasation of edema. Okay, that is edema formation is by three ways. One is increased hydrostatic pressure, which is commonly seen in left ventricular failure. Okay, reduced plasma oncotic pressure because of liver failure or kidney failure with protein loss, and third is increased capillary permeability edema. So this in ARDS, this is the mechanism. Increased permeability form of pulmonary edema is seen. Non-cardiogenic increased permeability form of pulmonary edema. So there are three phases: exudative phase, proliferative phase, fibrotic phase. Okay. Coming to exudative phase, this exudative phase in ARDS occurs immediately and lasts for up to 1 week. Okay, so this exudative phase can last up to 1 week. It is characterized by diffuse alveolar damage, and there will be accumulation of extravascular lung water, protein, and inflammatory cells in the interstitial and alveolar spaces with characteristic hyaline membranes. Okay, there will be proteinous debris which is thick. Okay, thick viscid. Okay, thick protein containing membrane which will be lining the alveoli, which is known as hyaline membranes. Okay, type 1 alveolar cell necrosis will be there, intraalveolar hemorrhage. So these are the features in the exudative phase which lasts up to 1 week. Next is proliferative phase, lasts for another 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, this proliferative phase is characterized by increased numbers of type 2 pneumocytes, whereas type 1 pneumocytes were injured in the first phase. So okay, that will be replaced by type 2 pneumocytes in the second phase, that is proliferative phase. There will be clearing of alveolar edema and debris, improving gas exchange, and eventual liberation from the ventilator. And remember this, most of the patients of ARDS will require invasive mechanical ventilatory support. Okay, most of them will require invasive mechanical ventilatory support only in mild cases. Some of the selected mild cases, where P by F ratio is between 200 to 300, we can try initially non-invasive mechanical ventilation, but many of them require invasive mechanical ventilatory support. So in this invasive patient, most of them will be on ventilatory support. So in this proliferative phase, there will be improving gas, patient will be improving clinically, there will be improving gas exchange, and patient will be eventually liberated from the ventilatory support. Third is fibrotic phase. This fibrotic phase usually develops after 2 to 3 weeks, and it is characterized by progressive interstitial and alveolar fibrosis, occasional large emphysematous bullae prone to rupture, prolonged ventilator dependency, increased morbidity and mortality. So if the fibrotic phase, not all, okay, if many patient will be liberated from the ventilator in the second phase itself, but fibrotic phase will be there in many patients to some extent. So depending on the extent of lung involvement, fibrotic phase, it can either lead to prolonged ventilatory dependency and increased morbidity and mortality. So these are the 3 phases of ARDS. Pathophysiology. What is the main important alterations in the lung physiology in ARDS? There is reduced alveolar ventilation. Intrapulmonary shunting, reduced lung compliance, which leads to increased work of breathing. This is very important. There will be reduced alveolar ventilation. So in normally what happens, the dependent alveoli, normally also in normal human beings also, depending alveoli tend to collapse. Okay, depending alveoli tend to collapse at the end of expiration, right? So depending alveoli tend to collapse at the end of expiration, but it is in the physiological limits. Whereas in ARDS, more and more alveoli which are dependent, which are having where there is edema fluid. You know that edema fluid is, it will be because of the gravity, it will be more at the dependent areas. Okay, it will be because of gravity, the edema fluid will be more in the dependent areas, which leads to more alveoli to collapse. Okay, more alveoli will be collapsing, which leads to reduced alveolar ventilation. So these alveoli which are collapsed, are not participating in ventilation. So there is reduced alveolar ventilation. Next is intrapulmonary shunting. So the alveoli are not participating in ventilation, but there is blood flow. Okay, so this blood flow without any gas exchange will be going to left side of heart. This is known as intrapulmonary shunting. Reduced compliance, increased work of breathing. So because of the interstitial and alveolar fluid accumulation, the lungs become stiff. Okay, the lungs become stiff. So there will be compliances. What is lung compliance? What is lung compliance? Can anyone explain? Lung compliance. So compliance means change in volume per unit change in pressure. So change in volume per unit change in pressure. So in case of ARDS, where there are lungs are stiff, okay, lung compliance is reduced. So more pressure is required in order to open up the lungs. Okay, more pressure is required in order to open up the lungs. So lungs are very stiff. Okay, because of this increased work of breathing. So whenever the lungs are stiff, okay, compliance is reduced. You need more and more energy dissipation for opening up the lungs. Okay, so this is the main pathophysiology. And remember this intrapulmonary shunting is very important, because even if you give oxygenation, okay, even if you are giving supplemental oxygenation from outside, the patient's response, oxygenation will not improve much. Okay, there will not be significant response because of this intrapulmonary shunting. There is no alveolar ventilation. Remember that there is no alveolar ventilation. Oxygen, even if you are giving oxygenation, because of this intrapulmonary shunting, the patient will not be having much improvement in oxygen levels of the blood. Clinical consequences, what happens? So because of this altered physiology, because of reduced alveolar ventilation, because of pulmonary intrapulmonary shunting, and because of reduced lung compliance, there will be need for mechanical ventilation to reduce work of breathing. So, okay, lung compliance is reduced. So patient is struggling to open his lungs, okay, to expand his lungs. So patient is struggling to expand his lungs. So there will be work of breathing is more. There is a chance that patient will be going to fatigue. So okay, respiratory fatigue can lead, that leads to respiratory fatigue and respiratory arrest. So from outside you should support his lungs, okay, from outside you support his lungs by mechanical ventilation. So to reduce work of breathing, need for high FiO2 to achieve an acceptable partial pressure of oxygen. So because of the intrapulmonary shunting, there will not be much improvement in the oxygenation with simple oxygen supplementation. In addition to other measures, you have to increase the supplemental oxygen so that acceptable oxygen levels are achieved in the blood. Positive airway pressure throughout the respiratory cycle to improve alveolar ventilation. You know that alveoli are not, so there are alveoli are collapsed here. So you have to open up the alveoli by giving pressure from outside. Okay, you should give positive airway pressure from outside so that the alveoli which are collapsed will open up to some extent, and it will prevent further collapsing of alveoli. Remember that in physiology, if one alveolus is collapsing, it will cause other surrounding alveoli also to collapse. Okay, so because of this, so to prevent this alveolar collapse, you should give positive airway pressure from outside. Differential diagnosis. So what are the other conditions which can be considered with such a picture? Okay, so patient is coming to you with shortness of breath, okay, with a short duration, usually 1 week duration. On x-ray there is diffuse infiltrates or diffuse haziness. Okay, on x-ray chest radiography is showing diffuse haziness, bilateral haziness. So you should consider all these possibilities. One is cardiogenic pulmonary edema. Cardiogenic pulmonary edema, most of the patient will have background history of hypertension and cardiac failure earlier also. Patient will be giving prior history of cardiac disorders, okay, and they will respond very well to diuretics. Okay, they will respond very well to diuretics, right? So diffuse alveolar hemorrhage when usually seen in corrective tissue disorders and okay, vasculitis patients. Okay, so such history will be there. Diffuse alveolar hemorrhage, connective tissue disorders, and some medications. Okay, when you will be taking history, so is there any, you should know, you should see whether any medication which the patient is using is known to cause any diffuse alveolar hemorrhage. Acute interstitial pneumonia where cause cannot be identified. Usually acute interstitial pneumonia is very difficult to identify acute interstitial pneumonia and differentiate it from ARDS. So because but in acute interstitial pneumonia you cannot identify any cause. Usually in case of ARDS you may identify any pneumonia or you may identify any gastric aspiration or sepsis. Okay, so acute interstitial pneumonia, acute eosinophilic pneumonia, miliary tuberculosis, cryptogenic organizing pneumonia, disseminated cancer. So in order to differentiate ARDS from these other conditions, we may need other tests like bronchoscopy. You can take help of bronchoscopy to differentiate these conditions from ARDS. So that I will explain the next slide. So this is a differential diagnosis: cardiogenic pulmonary edema, diffuse alveolar hemorrhage, acute interstitial pneumonia, acute eosinophilic pneumonia, miliary tuberculosis, cryptogenic organizing pneumonia, disseminated cancer. Investigations, routine investigations. A patient will be, you send routine basic investigation, complete blood picture, okay, liver function test, renal function test, blood sugar levels, and serum electrolyte. All these basic investigations you will be doing. Computer tomography, CT scan will show you bilateral diffuse haziness. Okay, there can be consolidation or ground glass haziness. Okay, that can be, even though it is not specific for acute respiratory distress syndrome, it will give you some underlying, okay, clues to some underlying etiology. Okay, you may, if you are seeing some underlying mass lesion, okay, on computer tomography, if you are able to see some underlying mass lesion, then it can be carcinomatous. Okay, disseminated carcinomatous. Okay, so this to some extent these CT scan and other investigation will help in differentiating this ARDS from other condition. Bronchoscopy with bronchoalveolar lavage, right heart catheterization with estimation of pulmonary capillary wedge pressure, which should be less than 18 millimeters of mercury. This is not routinely employed nowadays. Okay, right heart catheterization is done to know whether it is cardiogenic pulmonary edema or non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema. In case of cardiogenic pulmonary edema, this pulmonary capillary wedge pressure will be more than 18 millimeters of mercury, but it is an invasive procedure and not routinely employed. So in bronchoscopy, if the eosinophil count is more than 15%, if the eosinophil count is more than 15%, then you can consider acute eosinophilic pneumonia. Okay, and if you are getting more blood stained secretion, then it is alveolar hemorrhage. Okay, so these are all the investigation we do to differentiate it from ARDS. Management: treat the underlying cause. Okay, I told you ARDS is a final carbon pathway, and underlying etiology can be anything. Okay, it can be gastric aspiration, or it can be pneumonia, it can be anything. So your underlying cause should be treated accordingly. So, okay, if it is pneumonia, then you give antibiotics. Okay, invasive mechanical ventilation is the mainstay of treatment. Invasive mechanical ventilation is the mainstay of treatment. So because there is a specific ventilatory strategy, that is lung protective ventilatory strategy, because it is a stiff lung. Okay, it is a stiff lung, and the dependent alveoli are in collapsed state, so they are not participating. These dependent alveoli are not participating in any gas exchange. So now what is the treatment strategy? It is you should support the ventilation. You should support the ventilation. You should support the respiratory pump. It is a respiratory pump, right? So you are supporting the respiratory pump or lung from outside by giving invasive mechanical ventilation, and you should also make sure that you are not giving excessive pressures. Okay, because even if you are giving excessive pressure, that leads to barotrauma. That is because of high pressures in the alveoli. Okay, high pressure in the alveoli, there is a chance that the alveoli get ruptured. Okay, there is a chance that the alveoli, because of the shear stress, they can get ruptured. That leads to further aggravation of the condition. So this is the reason why there is a specific ventilatory strategy. There are specifications that low tidal volume should be given, 6 milliliters per kg predicted body weight. Oh, there are formula for predicted body weight. Low tidal volumes, that is 6 milliliters per kg of predicted body weight. Positive end expiratory pressure should be 5 centimeters of water. Respiratory rate should be less than or equal to 35. Okay, this is known as lung protective ventilatory strategy. Lung protective ventilatory strategy. Low tidal volume, PEEP at the level of 5 centimeters of water. Respiratory rate less than or equal to 35. Mechanical ventilation goals. What are the goals? Okay, so based on these goals, you can change the mechanical ventilator settings. Okay, so mechanical ventilation goals: partial pressure of oxygen should be in the range of 55 to 80. That is sufficient. Okay, so between 55 to 80 millimeters of mercury, or oxygen saturation as seen on pulse oximeter, seen on finger pulse oximeter, should be more than or equal to 88%. That is sufficient. You need not maintain 100% oxygen levels. Okay, 100% saturation is not required. Okay, more than or equal to 88% is sufficient. Plateau pressure less than 30 centimeters of mercury. This is plateau pressure is the pressure in the airways. Okay, this pressure in the airways should not be beyond 30 centimeters of water, because if you are giving more and more pressure, that leads to rupture. Okay, alveolar injury, barotrauma, that leads to further aggravation of the condition. Partial pressure of inspired fraction of inspired oxygen should be less than 0.6. Okay, FiO2 should be less than 0.6, and the pH of the blood should be in the range of 7.3 to 7.4. So mainly this pH is very important. It should not be in acidotic range. Okay, this pH should not be in acidotic range. It should be in the 7.3 to 7.45. Rescue therapies. Okay, the main treatment strategy in ARDS. Is invasive mechanical ventilatory support. So there are other therapies, rescue therapies, which can help to some extent. Okay, if the patient is not improving after 2 to 3 days of invasive mechanical ventilatory support, then you can try other therapies which are known as rescue therapies. One of them is prone ventilation. Prone ventilation is the patient will be in prone position for 1 or 2 hours, then again he will be in supine position. So what happens in the prone ventilation? You know that the dependent alveoli tend to collapse, okay, compared to the non-dependent. But what happens, because of the gravity, more and more blood will be circulating at the dependent areas only. Okay, so there is ventilation perfusion mismatch more at the dependent areas. Ventilation perfusion mismatch more at the dependent areas. Because of this, there will be intrapulmonary shunting. The prone ventilation, okay, because of in this prone ventilation, what happens, there will be circulation, that is diffusion, blood supply to the ventilated areas will be improved. So this reduces the ventilation perfusion mismatch. This prone ventilation reduces the ventilation perfusion mismatch and improves oxygenation to some extent. So this is not a primary treatment. This is rescue therapy. Okay, it is an additional add-on therapy. Inverse ratio ventilation. Inverse ratio ventilation. What happens? So normally our inspiration and expiration ratio will be in the range of 1.1:2 to 1:5. Okay, so inspiration is less compared to expiration. So expiration takes more time. Okay, expiration takes more time. Okay, so in inverse ratio ventilation, what happens is we prolong the inspiration and we stop the expiration at some point. Okay, we don't allow the expiration to continue. Okay, so that the alveoli do not collapse. Okay, I told you at the end of expiration in normal human beings also, at the end of expiration some of the alveoli which are dependent tend to collapse. Okay, in this can be physiological, but in case of this ARDS it is aggravated. Okay, there is aggravation of this physiological changes in ARDS. So this collapse of the dependent alveoli can be stopped to some extent by using inverse ratio ventilation. That is, the expiration is not totally allowed. Okay, it is expiration is allowed partially. So this is known as inverse ratio ventilation. So instead of 1:2, we can change it to 2:1. So inspiration will be taking more time, 2 seconds inspiration, 1 second expiration, so that some air is there in the lungs, trapped in the lungs, and it will not because if you are emptying the lungs totally, the collapse of the dependent alveoli will be more. High frequency ventilation, where small tidal volumes will be given at a higher rate. Extracorporeal membrane oxygenation. It is something like a dialysis machine. Okay, something like a dialysis machine. So what dialysis machine does is it takes up the work of function of kidney, right? In dialysis, what happens? The work of kidney is done by machine. In case of extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, the work of lungs is done by this machine outside. Okay, this is extracorporeal, outside the body. Extracorporeal membrane oxygenation. The oxygenation and removal of carbon dioxide is done through a machine, so that the lung takes some time. It takes rest. Okay, for some time. Okay, inhalational prostacyclin and nitric oxide. This prostacyclin and nitric oxide are vasodilators. Okay, prostacyclin or nitric oxide, they are vasodilators. So what happens? So what is the purpose of, what is the mechanism of inhalational prostacyclin and nitric oxide? So suppose imagine a lung. Okay, imagine a lung of ARDS patient. Imagine a lung of ARDS patient where the alveoli at the dependent areas are collapsed. The alveoli at the dependent areas are collapsed and the upper alveolar are patent. Okay, they are open. Okay, the alveolar ventilated at the apex and not at the base. But the vessel supply, blood supply is very well at the base. Okay, very well at the base, but blood supply is not so good at the apex where oxygenation can be done. Okay, where alveolar open, but they are not getting adequate blood supply for gas exchange. Whereas at the base, the alveolar are collapsed, but they are getting adequate blood supply, but which is of no use. So whenever you are giving inhalational prostacyclin and nitric oxide, this will preferentially go to the areas of opened alveoli, that is at the apex. This will move because the lower alveolar collapses. So this prostacyclin nitric oxide through inhalation route will not enter the alveoli which are collapsed. So they will move preferentially to the areas where there is ventilation. Okay, where the alveolar are open. So because of these areas, when these nitric oxide prostacyclin going to these areas, that local vessels will be opened up. They cause vasodilatation of the local area, so that the blood will move from the dependent area towards the apex area, that is non-dependent area, so that there will be gas exchange improvement. So this is the mechanism. Role of steroids. What is the role of steroids in ARDS? They should be given within 1 to 7 days, but ideally less than 3 days. Okay, so steroids to be given within 1 to 7 days, but ideally they should be given within 3 days. Methylprednisolone are equivalent in the dose of 1 milligram per kg IV bolus, then 1 milligram per kg day continuous IV infusion for 14 days. Okay, so methylprednisolone initial bolus dose of 1 milligram per kg IV, then 1 milligram per kg per day continuous IV infusion for 14 days. To be avoided giving with paralytic agent. So remember that whenever you are intubating a patient, whenever the patient is kept on mechanical ventilation, so okay, sometimes we use paralytic agents. Okay, sometimes we use muscle relaxants. Okay, muscle relaxant whenever the patient is not, there is a dysynchrony between the patient breathing and and mechanical ventilator. In such a situation, we may use paralytic, that is muscle relaxing agent. So in such a situation, it's better to avoid steroids giving with paralytic agent. Discontinue if no clear benefit is seen in 3 to 5 days. If the patient is not improving clinically, oxygenation, okay, oxygenation improvement and need for pressures, okay, level of pressures required for ventilation. If there is no improvement after 3 to 5 days of use, then it is should be stopped. There is no role of corticosteroids after 2 weeks. Okay, thank you. Any doubts? Any questions? Anyone over there? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Any doubt? Okay, thank you. We'll conclude the session.